Welcome back to Boy Party's 25 for 25, where I count down my 25 favourite films of the past 25 years. We're on to number 23 on the list. This is Todd Field's Tar from 2022. Tar is such a fantastic, weird, long, dense film that I have grown to constantly want to revisit and think about and consider. I got the opportunity to spend some time with Todd Field last year through a work engagement, and he was such a open and interesting and generous personality and figure. We spoke about his films and the films of Mike Nichols and Radu Jude and American politics and the fact that he ran into Jimmy Stewart once, whose car had broken down. And this isn't just me name dropping, but it has enhanced my appreciation of this film hugely, to have some personal knowledge of the person behind it. And I say this as someone who doesn't love Todd Field's previous two feature films all that much. In the Bedroom and Little Children are both very solid and have moments of greatness in them and some really, really strong performances from the likes of Sissy Spacek and Tom Wilkinson and Jackie Earle Haley in the case of Little Children. But neither of those films ever really connected with me in the way that Tar absolutely does. This film, of course, stars Cate Blanchett in an Oscar-nominated leading role as Lydia Tár, the conductor of the Berlin, an unnamed Berlin orchestra. We can assume it's the Berlin Philharmonic, I assume. The poster for this movie is phenomenal. It's Cate Blanchett conducting, her head thrown back, her arms outstretched. And it just says, Blanchett, Tar. Just one of the most striking pieces of artwork for a film in recent memory. Blanchett completely commands the screen. This is the best work of her career, in my opinion. If you listen to Boy Party's recent Notes on a Scandal episode, you'll have heard us discuss her and her best work. But this is an incredible role, a character she builds from scratch so convincingly that there are many, many people, not me, I must say, because, I'm not this disengaged culturally, but many people who went to see this film thinking it was a biopic of a real conductor, Lydia Tár. And that's how dense the script is, and that's how detailed and true to real culture that Field's script and Blanchett's performance are, that they make the story of Lydia Tár, which is at times a little far-fetched, a little goofy, but they make it seem incredibly truthful and like something that could be happening right now, in both scary, funny, and dramatic ways. The film begins backwards, you might say, with typical end credits running from end to beginning at the very start of the film. And then we go to a New York venue where Lydia Tár is being interviewed at the New Yorker Festival by Adam Gopnik about her career.
If you're here, then you already know who she is, and that is one of the most important musical figures of our time. Lydia Tár is many things: a piano performance graduate at the Curtis Institute, Phi Beta Kappa from Harvard. She got her PhD.
This scene goes on for about 15, 20 minutes. Really, really extensive interview that Field shows us at the pace that one would probably watch an interview in real life. And this is where you start to believe in Lydia Tár as a real person, because you're sitting patiently with the tempo of this conversation and you're learning about her very specific role in culture and what is Lydia Tár, who is Lydia Tár, and what do people think of her. You're getting this, though, from her perspective, through her own words, speaking about herself. She's literally here promoting a book called Tar on Tar. And you do get the sense that although she's impressive, she is a woman in her field, typically dominated by men, that has obviously broken new ground and reached the top in conducting and in classical music. But nevertheless, she is clearly someone around whom the world must revolve, and a shameless self-promoter and self-mythologizer, and a lot of the film ends up being rooted in that idea. And what Todd Field does here is he offers Blanchett the opportunity to play a female role as complicated, as sinister, but compelling and charismatic as the great leading man roles that we think of when we talk about great American film, whether that's Michael Corleone or Travis Bickle or whoever. The roles that those great actors have gotten to play over the decades have been few and far between for women. Women in films often, not to generalize, roles written for women by male screenwriters can be very one-dimensional, one way or the other, especially in films like this. And this is anything but that. Lydia Tár is fully rounded, three-dimensional character. You can both love her and hate her. And what this film proposes is, in many ways, it's possible to do both. And to fear this creation that she is, while also, from a distance, respecting the fact that she has obviously gained enormous power in her area. So we move on to this very famous scene where Lydia Tár is conducting a workshop at Juilliard, and she basically gets into an extended argument with a student who is, to put it bluntly, quote, woke. And this is a guy who identifies as a pangender person and clearly is like, a very 2022 idea of a young person who is very conscious of social injustice and of trying to push back against racial and gender norms. But Todd Field, I don't think, is trying to make us ridicule this person beyond the initial shock of how he engages with Lydia on the music of Bach. He's obviously putting his, quote, again, wokeness above cultural engagement, and Lydia Tár is affronted by this, and she starts to attack him for it. And it's highly satirical. It's a satirical perspective on how a young person engages with an older teacher figure, and on how the teacher figure has a completely reactionary response. And it feels to me, as someone who has been in these situations on both sides of this kind of argument, as both the woke young person and as the slightly frustrated cultural enthusiast who does believe in separating art from artist in some cases, I find it absolutely compelling to watch Lydia Tár lose the run of herself, I suppose, in tackling this student. And it comes back to bite her later in the film because she is so confrontational and she's so sure of her own way of doing things and thinking about things. And this becomes a problem for her.
Have you ever played or conducted Bach?
Honestly, as a BIPOC, pangender person, I would say Bach's misogynistic life makes it kind of impossible for me to take his music seriously.
Come on. What do you mean by that?
Shout out to a fantastic voice cameo from Mr. Alec Baldwin, who pops up doing a fake Here's the Thing podcast interview with Lydia Tár, which I hugely enjoy. This is the kind of thing that just really adds to the texture of the film. It makes it feel like it is real modern day classical music world story.
During the lockdown, you did something I thought remarkable. You made music for free. Anyone at all could stream Berlin performances without ever paying a dime.
Well, that was it's a democratically made decision by the players, and though I wish I could claim the idea was mine,
dark,
it really
weird,
did spring from the heart of
surrealist almost side to this film, which manifests in Lydia Tár's sort of outdoor nighttime quests through Berlin. There's a fantastic scene where she goes running in the park and hears a woman screaming, and this is when she starts to demonstrate some signs of sort of not entirely being with it, I suppose. Another great scene where this young female musician that she hires, she gives her a lift home and then tries to follow her into her house because she has left like a teddy in her car, and stumbles into this like terrifying like sewer dungeon abandoned house, and then like violently trips on the stairs and gets a massive bruise on her face. It's an insane scene that I really, really love. And then what happens is it basically becomes a a really, really smart and, ground level cancel culture satire. And there hasn't been many of these. I will shout out 2 other projects in the past few years that I think have handled this subject well. And that's the movie Dream Scenario with Nicolas Cage, which I seemingly liked more than anyone else on the planet. And then the Netflix show The Chair with Sandra Oh and Shea Duplass, which I really liked as well. They both handled the idea of cancel culture in a way that was not damning or entirely appraisal. Those were 2, as is this film, sort of nuanced, clever, winky perspectives on the idea of accountability for people who have said and done terrible things, inappropriate things, and the consequences that face them as a result. But this film is the best of the bunch. And Lydia Tár has obviously, we start to learn, taken advantage of young women. I haven't mentioned the fact that she's in a gay relationship with, she has a wife, who's played by the great German actress Nina Hoss. And they have an adopted daughter. And this actually leads to some of the best moments of the film in witnessing Lydia's bizarre approach to parenting, I might say. But yeah, we learn that she's basically, as are many men in the film and music worlds have been exposed to be over the years, she is an abuser of young women who have been working for her or with her, or she's been in a position of authority above them. And again, we don't see this with the gender roles reversed very often. And I think the way that Todd Field depicts it in this film, without ever jumping to the kind of misogynistic hysteria of, women can be abusers as well, that you might imagine a film like this would have. It's not like that at all. It is, Lydia Tár is obviously a character who operates with some habits of male behavior. And there's things that she's obviously done that are terrible that do resemble the way that a man in her job would behave. And it's actually really interesting to see a female character who jumps into these areas and faces the same consequences that you would hopefully see a man face if he was doing these things. But we get to hear some of these accusations against her, and she fights back against them.
Enticed and groomed multiple young women to engage in sex acts for professional favors. Blocked opportunities to those who didn't comply. This is total fiction. In The Post, it's a how-to-do scandal rag. No serious person reads it.
She's also losing her mind at this time, and the apartment in her building belonging to a neighbor who has died, an old woman, goes up for sale, and she basically tries to scare absolutely everybody off with a crazy accordion performance that is probably the most iconic, highly memed moment in this film. She ultimately has to face the consequences of her actions, and she's removed from a performance opportunity that she's been looking forward to, and she runs out on stage and tackles her replacement, who is Mark Strong, who's very good in this and has a funny wig. And she has her Joker moment. He publicly humiliates herself, is completely ostracized from the music world. She retreats to her old childhood home in Staten Island, where her brother lives. You find out her name is really Lydia Tár, with 2 R's, without the accent. So all of this has been a bit of a performance for Linda. And she watches an old tape of Leonard Bernstein discussing the importance of music for young people, and she starts to cry. And it's a very powerful scene of, I guess, seeing this kind of monster crack and remember where her passion would have originated from before she developed this monstrous side to her. Then she travels to the Philippines, and there's this kind of curious 15-20 minutes of the film before it ends where she's traveling around and ends up in a sort of massage parlor that's probably actually a brothel, and she gets sick on the street. And then we have this fantastic final scene where she is revealed to have now been reduced to conducting live performances of video game scores, a video game called Monster Hunter that is real, in front of an audience of cosplayers. The ultimate humiliation for a conductor to be reduced to this kind of work. And it's a really, really fantastic final reveal.
Sisters and brothers of the Fifth Fleet, it's time. I'll keep my farewell brief. Never was much with words. Once you board this ship, there's no turning back. The next ground your feet touch will be that of the New World. If any of you have lost your nerve, then step away now and let no one judge you.
And then the movie ends, and there's this insane, like almost techno piece by Hildur Guðnadóttir that plays over the end credits that just leaves you on such a high of like crazy tension and insane energy. And the movie is so memorable and so rewatchable, and every scene in it is like 20 minutes long. I may not have communicated this well, but like it is so slow in such a brilliant and detailed and like not boring way. Like it's 158 minutes. The scenes are really, really long, and it's just like something that I can kind of dip into at any moment and be compelled by. And yes, it does help that Todd Field was very nice to me in person. So that's Tar, my 23rd favorite film of the last 25 years. And I hope if you haven't seen it, you'll check it out. Although I've spoiled it for you now, so it maybe is too late. Join us again soon where I'll be discussing the 22 best film of the last 25 years, and check out new episodes of Boy Party every Tuesday on the regular feed. Thank you. Bye-bye.